excited to finally be here. Maybe I'm a little embarrassed, but it's alright, just take it to the left brain, shake it to the right brain, try to get lost somewhere in the middle brain. You could be in love with anyone, but you're not in love with anyone, because you're in love with me.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is a special bonus edition in which we're talking to the two founders and co-directors of Charco Press, Sam McDowell and Ariana Orloff. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
I was going to say bright and early, but it's not bright and early where you guys are.
It's 3 p.m. here in Scotland, and it's almost nighttime already, so...
Yeah,
Not funny.
It's 10 a.m. here in Rochester, and it looks like nighttime. So we just call that winter.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
We probably have the same sort of weather patterns here. But anyways, well, thank you guys for joining. And so Charco has been around for a couple of years now, but you guys are just entering into the U.S. market this month with the first book that Consortium is distributing for you. So we've been trying to do some highlighting of the press and some of the books. I've read a bunch of them. There's another article that I'm working on slowly but surely about two that Charlie Coombe translated for you guys. And I want to interview her and talk to a few people and really highlight Charco because I think what you guys are doing is really important and fun. But for everyone listening and for myself, I don't know how you got started in this. I don't know any backstory. I just know I saw the books at some point in time, maybe on Twitter. Mark Haber recommended a bunch of them, and then all of a sudden, like, they were there. I kept seeing them, but never had access. And then now that we have access, I've been reading everything. So tell me the story. How did you guys come to be?
Sure. Well, we've been playing hard to get just to keep you interested, Chad. But thank you very much for taking an interest in what we're doing, and for having us on today, and for reading our books and getting to know a bit more about us. So Charco was an idea that started around about 2015 when Ariana and I were living in South America. So for the people that don't know, Ariana's from Argentina originally, and I'm from New Zealand. This is not a Scottish accent. Wow. We were living in South America. Ariana has a background in Latin American literature. It's her bread and butter. Her family ran a bookstore in the middle of Buenos Aires. Borges used to have an account there and come in and buy stationery there. And she was educating me somewhat on some of the what was happening in the region in this day and age, and some of the authors that were around. And we would look at a book and pick up a new author, or a newish author, or an author that had been around for a couple of years even, and would really like what they were producing, and then we'd go and check to see if it was available in English, and it just never was. 100% of the titles that we checked to see their availability in English just were not available in English. And these are titles that have been translated into other languages, either Italian, some of them Chinese, French, but just never English. So from that, an idea started that, we should be. These are really, really interesting authors, and they're doing some really interesting things and some great new styles that are developing. And why shouldn't English-speaking readers have the opportunity to explore these authors? So that was where the idea started. We followed through with it. We did some research. We spoke to publishers in the region over there. We spoke to people over here who said, don't do it. There's no market for translated fiction. You guys are crazy. No one would do that. And then we went and did it. So in 2016, we formed the company, but the first books didn't come out until 2017.
Yeah.
So late 2017. And that's when we did 3 books all at once, just to make a bit of a mark to say, here we are. Yeah. And then we followed up a couple of months later with 2 more. And then we started eyeing up what we do in the North American market, and we had some great conversations with Consortium, and then rolled forward, and our first book came out in the US and Canada in October, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's all right. It's just 1 month ago. It's okay. So we've got 2 books out there now.
I don't even know what month it is right now, to be honest. Like we just hosted the Alta conference. I was like, yeah, it's whatever month that was. So It's fantastic.
I should add to Sam's brilliant explanation that I wasn't just. So I'm from Argentina originally, but I had been living in the UK for over a decade. Almost 15 years when this idea started, and most of that time I was in the academic world studying and then teaching Latin American literature. So this frustration came from, at least for me, from way back in the day when I would be doing my PhD here in Edinburgh, actually, and go back for conferences or for interviews back to Argentina or Colombia or other Latin American countries. And then I would be surrounded by all these academics and students reading and talking about these authors and books. And then I would come back here and, talk to my colleagues and say, well, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing this also? Why? And, we get these constant blank faces of, never heard of them. Yeah. And that was, replicated in the bookshops, of course. So it seemed to me, at least in the academic world, and I think that's starting to change finally, as I'd say in the last 5 or 8 years, at least in the UK, that there was a very kind of long delay in what people were reading and talking about and being excited about in terms of Latin American literature, contemporary Latin American literature. Now they were still studying Borges and, the old kind of very respected dinosaurs, but still, I felt there was a big gap that needed to be filled somehow.
Yeah, it especially seems like, so I'll lead into this way. Do you guys want to describe for a minute, like what your mission of what kind of books you're specifically looking for, like your aesthetic or the type of titles that you want to publish? I know that that's an impossible question in a lot of ways to answer, but I'm curious. I know that you have at least a mission statement, so.
Well, we're interested in publishing, one hand books that are contemporary, so writers that are writing now and that are making an impact now. So I don't think we're solely interested in books that are successful, in whatever that means, in popular, at least popular terms or mainstream terms. But I think what we're trying to do is to bring over to the English-speaking readership those books that are getting into the social debate, as it were. I think, personally, as a reader, that's what I'm interested in. When I see that an author has published an interesting book that tells a very interesting story, but that also has an impact on what people are talking about in, when you go out into the street, as it were, or, not just highly political topics, but just things that are, I think that are interesting, that are alive. So that's more or less what drives us, I think. What do you think, Sam?
I totally agree with that. I think also authors that are perhaps experimenting with styles a little bit, that are playing with their themes and trying out some new things. We sort of get struck by this almost change. The voices now in Latin American literature that feel a bit unshackled maybe from some of the past. They feel a bit freer and able to express themselves. And from that, we're seeing some interesting writing coming out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it seems like one of the things that's impressive is the number of books by women writers that you're doing too. Which is like when you mention the older Argentine writers, it always is like Cortázar, Borges, like very, very male dominant. So to have like a fresh contemporary voices and to have so many of them be from female writers, that seems very relevant and very important and very key to sort of your brand and to expanding like what's available to English readers.
Thank you. Yes, well, it's still. There's still a lot to do, as it were, and it's a shame that at the moment we are kind of having to be restricted. Well, at least Sam restricts me to publish six books a year because there's just so much interesting material to do. But we're growing slowly. But I was thinking just now that we're publishing a Peruvian author somewhere down the line called Katia Adawi, who's a female contemporary author. And just, sometimes you don't stop to think about these things, but it's so hard for female writers today, in certainly more than in other Latin American countries, to even get noticed, let alone then get published, and then get published by a semi-biggish, respectable publisher. And you need to go through all these hurdles before someone from another language can even, of course, hear your name or read about your book. So she was very grateful to us, Charco, that this is her only book that she's got published, a book of short stories. And, she was telling me that she had to kind of squeeze through all these kind of 60-year-old male that still dominate, for example, I'm sure I'm going to get into trouble with this, but never mind, the publishing industry in Peru, for example, which is not the case in other countries, certainly, but, still in some countries it is. So it's very gratifying, rewarding to be able to, to play a part in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a question that I have. How do you come to find the books that you want to publish?
It's a trade secret. It's a trade secret.
It's like the Coca-Cola.
I guess like a more direct way is that there's a lot of presses that do translations that generally work a lot with translators that are submitting stuff to you. Do you guys take submissions or recommendations from various translators? Also, before you answer that, it took me a second to get here. There have been 3 books available in the U.S. by female Peruvian authors over the past 11 years.
Wow.
So
you just looked that up just then, or you knew that fact?
No, I can look it up because we have the Publishers Weekly translation database that I run, so I can do any of these searches. And I've done various ones with Spanish language writers from all over, breaking it down into which countries are the most likely to be translated, but then also looking at the gender divide, and it's very, very, very. It's very sharp and it's very bad. It's like one of the worst languages that has the biggest gap between male and female writers.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's fun to look up like Peru, female, Argentina. I can play a little game here. Female Argentine writers.
It's great. This is great radio.
Yeah, this is, Look, as I do research. Oh, nope.
Welcome to Chad Googling.
Yeah, well, it's just running a database. But I'll figure it out in a second because I just screwed it up. But anyway, so how do you come to the books that you're doing? Are you reading all of them? Are you familiar with them from your background as an academic, or are they coming to you in different ways through recommendations or whatnot?
Well, it's a mixture. Really a magic mixture, obviously. We do take recommendations from translators, and we take them very seriously, and they're a great reference point for us, certainly. We also take recommendations from authors, so authors that we already know and what they're reading or what they've discovered, which is also fascinating to me anyway as an editor. And then I also take recommendations from fellow publishers, fellow editors in Latin America, which is much appreciated. And then it's just reading, and sorry, that's Michael's. And I pay attention. It's not just about reading books, but reading newspapers and literature festival. Who are they inviting? And then I go into asking why are they inviting them? Is it because of the books or something else? Or so. There's not just one answer to that. Yeah.
It all goes into a big melting pot, and then out of that comes the production line, I guess.
Yeah, and you do seem like you guys are trying to do a number of books by the same author as well, correct?
Well, I think it's important for us to and for the author that when we start off with a new author, it's a commitment, and it's to a relationship and an investment into their work. And when we start off with them, it's because we believe in what they're doing, and it's important that we provide the space that they can grow, and that's key. So we always look at other opportunities to publish further titles by the same authors. And so far, all of our authors have been very, very eager to publish second titles with us, which is a good thing. But certainly it's important to put out one book by one author with a foreign sounding name in the English speaking world. It might do well or it might not. But it would be a shame to not keep pushing them forward and helping them grow.
Yeah, absolutely. How has it been setting up the press in the UK? I was over in September, I guess, for a couple different things to see, like Turnaround is our distributor in the UK, and to go to an event at the Cervantes Institute. And I ended up at the ELN meeting, the European Literature Network, which you guys should know about if you don't already, where they have like quarterly meetings for it'll be translators, publishers, funders, booksellers, people who put on festivals. All number of people get together and just sort of go through like what they're working on and what they're doing. And it was incredibly striking in the sense that the UK seems much more closely working together and much easier to both be able to set up different events and to do things that would raise awareness of what your activities are, and also to like have a support network for that. The US is very different than that. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised to say like the US is like very fragmented in terms of like the publishing is in New York. If you're not in New York, you're not really part of it. And the country's so big that it's impossible to like work together in like the way that you can in the UK. But how have you guys found starting out as a publishing house? And has there been a lot of support? Has there been a lot of attention? Like, what has that been like for you?
So over here, London is like the New York over there. London is the center of the publishing universe, and supposedly for a very, very long time, if you wanted to be taken seriously, that is where you had to start. That has changed a little bit over the last 10 years or so, and there's been a very noticeable shift to other areas, to the north of England. Up here in Scotland, aside from ourselves, there's a number of other small startup publishers that are trying to carve out their own area and doing some really interesting things as well. For us personally, neither of us come from a publishing background, so it was just a very, 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 very sharp, steep learning curve. Here's an idea. Now, what are we going to do with it? I don't know where do we start. Still is. But I have to say, by choosing to start here in Scotland, I think, looking back, it was probably about the best decision we could have made. It is a great place in terms of size, but being big enough to have an industry without it being a cottage industry. Yeah. We're close enough to London to still be in contact with London and still play a part and get in on the press relatively easily alongside the London houses. And the other thing that is really good about Scotland is that they have a really tight network with there's an organisation here called Publishing Scotland, which publishers and people in the industry can be part of, and they organise, apart from their training workshops, etc., they also have regular get-togethers, and it's just a really good chance to keep in touch with other publishers and find out what they're up to as well. And we've found the other publishers here in Scotland to be just very open and supportive. They haven't really seen us as competition. They probably, when we first started, said, "Oh, bless! Look at these guys; they're doing translated fiction. Good luck with that. How can we help? For the year and a half that you're going to be in existence." But they were from day one very supportive, open to just letting us come and have a coffee with them and talk to them about things. There's also quite very supportive structure from the government. So we're really, really fortunate here in that the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, who's kind of like the PM of Scotland, a very complicated way that the government is set up, works here at the moment and is getting worse. She is a big reader, and she is very supportive of both the development of artists, but also the development of the industry as a whole. So she will regularly talk to the young publishers group. She will give time to holding together a get together with the publishers as to what's going on in the industry and what sort of assistance is needed, and that is amazingly powerful. It just helps make you feel what you're doing is important. And for someone like us, that we've been mentioned by her in a couple of interviews, etc. And it just to get that sort of coverage is amazing. So I think starting here was just a brilliant idea. Now looking back, definitely didn't know that to begin with. It seemed like a good idea, but looking back, it definitely was.
We also had the support right from the get-go from the Edinburgh International Book Festival.
Of course.
Which happens every year, and it's just growing to amazing dimensions. And they actually kind of believed in us from the very beginning. And in fact, the very first year of our existence, or actually minus 6 months of our existence, they invited 2 of our authors. Without the books, the books actually got printed the day of their presentation.
Nice.
In the book festival. So and that's been incredibly important for us as well, and for our authors, because the International Book Festival here in August, as with the kind of all the array of festivals that take place here in August, it's also a gateway for publishers or even readers from other parts of the world to discover authors. So for us, that's been incredibly amazing as well, and for our authors certainly.
Oh yeah.
The final
and for the
one
readers.
And for the readers, definitely. And it's helped us reach just readers that would never come across these authors before as well, which is great. And the final thing I need to add into this particular piece around how it's been to start here, and that is the support from arts funding groups has been phenomenal. So here in Scotland, there is a government funding body called Creative Scotland, and they have just been outstanding. They've been really open to our ideas. We've been successful with some applications towards some projects, but they also have set up some days, industry days, and get-togethers, looking at things like trying to encourage other Scottish publishers to take on more translations and add more to their list. I think they're seeing that Scotland publishing could be another leg to the Scottish publishing scene. That why not? Why couldn't we be doing great literary translations as well? And also the Arts Council England have also been really supportive as well. So we're just between the local publishing industry, the Edinburgh Book Festival, and those in Creative Scotland and the Arts Council of England.
And the local booksellers as well.
And the local booksellers. There's so many people to thank.
Yeah.
The local booksellers, particularly here in Edinburgh, have just been rock stars. They have just been really, really happy to talk to us, find out what we're doing, promote what we're doing. They hand sell to their customers our stuff, and they're interested in what we're doing. It's a scene that's thriving here in Edinburgh. There's been 2 independent bookstores that have opened just in the last 6 months, 2 brand new stores, and we're talking about not a big city, and they're beautiful and they're amazing, and people are excited about them. So that's a good sign.
That's great. That's fantastic. The funding situation is really strong in the UK as well, compared to what we have here. The big difference being that the NEA is our main, National Endowment for the Arts is the main funder for US-based publishers, and you can't apply to them until you've been doing activities for a number of years. So all the startup stuff that when you need that sort of support and you need to get going, they can't fund you. They have to wait until you make it for, I believe it's 3 full years, and then you can apply for the first time for what would end up being like your 4th or 5th year of existence. So if you can make it till then, they can help support you, but there's nothing for that beginning phase that's set up here in the States that's like regular. You might have, obviously, like if you go to certain cities, you might have someone who wants to donate and make something happen, but it's not like a easily applicable sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really challenging. The one thing that Creative Scotland have been really quick to acknowledge is that they know that until you've actually established a little bit of a backlist, so that you can start to have those sales coming through consistently, that it's really hard. They know, and this is why we're really fortunate. They've got their finger on the pulse with that stuff, so that's why they're really keen to assist. Their preference is to assist early and let you get on your feet, and then back away and send you off into the world on your own, which is it's exactly what's required.
That makes the most sense. That's the way things should be, I think. So how did you guys come to these covers? I don't know. I don't think I looked at who designed them or what. But how did you? Because it's very distinctive. It's different than the average new publisher, which you have a very distinctive look, a very distinctive font, all that. How did you come to do that?
So one of the challenges we knew we were going to face, apart from the fact that we were doing only translated fiction, is that we were introduced, all of the authors that we've done so far, we are the first ones to publish them in English. So these are brand new names. Some of the names sound a bit foreign and weird to an English speaker. We were conscious of the fact that we would needed to maybe offset that with some strong branding. And we wanted to come up with an aesthetic that was immediately recognizable, but allowed each book to have its own unique presence and character. And we were lucky enough to engage the services of a great designer called Pablo Font, who lives in Buenos Aires. He's done everything for us, our logo, everything, and he's done all the covers, and he just hits them out of the park every single time. So we provide a brief. The authors have some input. They write some ideas that they've got in their head, and then Pablo takes us and then comes up with takes all these inputs and then comes up with some ideas for us, and then we move forward from there. But they're amazing. Yeah. And the other thing for having them look and feel similar, so that people can recognize them, that sort of that instant ability to recognize something. That if they've taken a chance on one of our titles before and they've picked one up and taken it home and read it and they've enjoyed it, they can easily find another one again, is the thinking.
Yeah, that's what I completely agree with that. It's something that like a lot of big publishers scoff at and are like, there's no brand for publishers. People don't know. And even like some booksellers are like, customers don't pay any attention to those things. But I feel like there is at least a segment of the population, of the reading population, that does care about that, and that it does make a difference, because you get a core base of fans that are supporting your books or talking about them and getting things going for like the word of mouth. And then you have those other people who just happen upon whatever title it is that they're excited about.
Yeah, and
sorry. No, I was just going to say that we also wanted to, we felt, I don't know how it is in the US, but I imagine it's a bit like here when you go to the biggest or the bigger kind of bookshops that you go in and you just everything, or a lot of books look the same in terms of, I as a reader, again, not as a publisher, but I always feel there's like there's like an invasion of one same color and some glittery things, and we just wanted to come back down to the basics and have a book that's also an object, a valuable object per se. So when you pick up our books, it's not just, they're not just a pretty significant or meaningful cover, but they also, we wanted them to feel nice. So we pay attention to the flaps, we pay attention to the good quality paper, the font, as you mentioned. And so it's a whole picture that we wanted to, come back to an object that you want to take home and you want to read and you want to, enjoy the experience of having that with you, as it were, as well as the good story that's inside, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So how's it been? What kind of things have you run into with getting the books into the U.S.? I know, I as a segue, I want to say also that Caroline Casey is helping promote your books here, and she's a good friend and a really important advocate of international literature and literature as a whole. So that is very smart. But I'm curious if you have any stories about like trying to get into the U.S. market.
Yeah, it's been challenging, but also really, really rewarding. And Caroline, I think we've just been so fortunate to have her join us. She's incredible. She just has enabled us to hit the ground running. She knows what she's doing. She knows the people. She's very, very clued up and switched on. So we've been really, really fortunate to have crossed paths with her at exactly the right time. Yeah. And Consortium as well have been an absolute pleasure to work with. They're amazing. We were a bit hesitant at first with Consortium, especially being part of Ingram's, that we would just get swallowed up into a massive, massive machine. Yeah. We have a really good relationship with our distributor here locally, InPress, who deal with publishers sort of our size, and then we're looking at this massive market over there. in the US and Canada, and then looking at joining this behemoth that is Ingram's. The consortium have been fantastic. They have made everything really easy. They provide great feedback. Yeah. They're really interested in what they're doing, and it's not just a by the numbers type of thing. They actively think about where's this going to work and where's it not going to work and what's the angle, and come back with suggestions to us as well around things. So it's been a pleasure from that side of things, and really apart from that, it's just some decisions around, do we change the spelling, do we Americanize the spelling or not, but we tend to figure we bought the books 99.5% of the way from another language to English.
Yeah,
the readers can put up with a couple of C's where they're expecting Z's or a couple too many U's in there. Maybe hopefully they can make it work. I
would think that. I mean, if we do a book where we're doing the U.S. edition and there's a UK edition, we always have the U.S. version. But when we're distributing a book of ours into the UK, we just leave it as the American. To reprint and to relay that out and to redo everything seems not worth it at all.
It would just take the costs to, we have to obviously be very, very aware of that. It removes a number of the benefits of trying to distribute the books yourselves in both places. And you know what? Part of it's personal experience as well. I remember when I grew up, I read plenty of novels by American authors that were in American English, and I survived. In fact, I quite enjoyed it. And then you learn some new things and some new terms and some new colloquialisms, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the books. Which are the ones? Which books have been most successful in your first couple of years of publishing, and that you're most proud of? I know it's like picking children, whatever, but just do it anyway. I have children, and I know which one's my favorite.
It's a bitch. We've got one child, so that's an easy. We dodged that quick.
Lucky.
That's difficult.
Stick with one.
Yeah, we probably have to start off with Die My Love for a number of reasons. It was one of the first books that we published. It was one of those first three that we mentioned, and it was our lead title amongst those three. It got shortlisted for an award over here called the Republic of Consciousness. Then it was longlisted for the Man Booker International, which was the Man Booker International in 2018, which just suddenly lent a lot of credibility to what we were doing, put us on some people's radars, and just really helped us take a giant step forward. And it's an incredible book. Yeah. So it's just, it leaves a mark, as I always tend to say, on the reader one way or another. You come away knowing you've read that book. Some people love it. Some people aren't so sure, but they know they've read it. Resistance by Julian Fuchs, which has just come out a couple of weeks ago there in the US.
That's the one I'm reading next.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a really accomplished piece of writing. I've read that several times, and each time something more shines through. It's a quietly spoken book, but it's just beautifully written and very articulate and wonderfully handled by Danny Ham in his translation of it. I just think it's a great book. It's just been longlisted on the International Dublin Literary Prize as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
And actually, we've our edition of Resistance has also just been shortlisted in Brazil in the Djibouti prizes for the Best Foreign Edition prize, which takes place at the end of this month. So, it's one.
We'll know that at the end of the month, the result of that.
Yeah. And it's won awards in Brazil. It's won the José Saramago Prize in Portugal. It's won the Djibouti in 2016 in Brazil. It's won the Anna Seghers Prize in Germany. There's a big long list of prizes that it's won. It's fantastic. But Caro, you might probably want to jump in here with. I've taken the obvious, my favorites, the easy one.
You haven't said which one's your favorite. They're all our favorite. That's why we've picked them. We're not gonna answer that question. No, but actually, Fish Soup, which is also coming out soon in the US in a couple of weeks. That's I was just going to say that's one of my favorites, but I can't say that.
It's great. That's one I finished reading because that's one of the ones I want to write about next is Fish Soup and The President's Room. But I really like Fish Soup. And I saw that you have a novel of hers coming out too.
Yes, we're just finishing the translation for that one. It's going to be called Holiday Heart.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's coming out here in the UK next year, next May.
Excellent. Are you guys going to end up, do you know what the delay is going to be between it coming out in the UK and coming out in the US, or is that going to depend upon any number of other factors?
We're moving towards aligning them so they'll be released in both markets simultaneously. It's just going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. So we're currently publishing faster in the US and Canada than we are here, and the goal is that maybe 2021 that we'll start putting books out simultaneously in both markets.
That makes sense. That's perfect. Yeah, we're always like 1 month behind or something like that, but yeah, it takes a while to get caught up. But you guys have a backlist that you can churn out, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I think we started this at the right time because we've got, I think, sufficient there to start to make an entry into the market. The readers to start to discover us, for us to start to get some attention, and then we can move forward to the point where we're bringing them back out at the same time in both markets. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be better for the reader, and it's going to also be better for us because it's going to make things simpler for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's spectacular. So there's 5 books that are coming out right now in the U.S. through the beginning of the year, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so The President's Room by Ricardo Romero, Die My Love by Ariana Harwicz, Margarita Garcia Roballo's Fish Soup, Yulian Fuchs' Resistance, and Luis Sagassi's Fireflies.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure that I'll link to all of those so that people that are in the States that want to access know which ones are on there. Because the whole catalog looks spectacular. Like, I'm really looking forward to Feeble Minded and the Rodrigo Fuentes book, Trout Belly Up. But they all sound really interesting, and it'll be great to have them coming out regularly here now too.
Yeah, it's going to be. We've got, as you say, 5 coming out in this season over there. Then we've got 3 more coming out in the spring, summer, and then I would say there'll be another 5 this fall, winter next year, and it'll just be progressing like that until we get to the point where we're doing them at the same time.
I do have one last question, I think, related to the translators that you're working with, because there are a number of them that have multiple books, and I wonder if that was like an intentional thing. So, like Charlie has a couple. Francis Riddle is on here, Ellen Jones, Annie McDermott, and I wondered if that was like part of your strategy of trying to work with the same translators for a few different titles, or if it just happened that way.
No, we definitely, there's a couple of factors that we take into account when we agree to work with a specific translator. On one hand, we wanted to have a mixture of already established, well-established translators that, like the likes of Danny Hahn or Megan McDowell, that already, just whatever they translate, it's going to do well in a way because they have a name for themselves. So we wanted to have them, of course, supporting our project and supporting our authors. But we also wanted to allow completely unknown names and translators that hadn't until now been able to publish a novel, or a literary piece of fiction, to allow them to to try us, as it were, to have their first book come with us. So to have a mixture of well-established translators and completely newcomers, because we're also aware how difficult it is to enter the literary, the circle of literary translation. So that's on one hand. And on the other hand, we feel that once a translator has worked very well with a certain author and with the universe of a certain author, then if it's possible, we want to promote that relationship and to promote that understanding, because once you as a translator, once you understand or hear the music or the silence of a certain style, then you're there, you got it, and I think it's very important to try and respect that. It works both ways. It works for the author and it works for the 3 ways. It works for us as well. So that's why because of what Sam was saying earlier about us believing in the aesthetic book project of a certain author, and us publishing not just one book because we like the book, but several books by the same author because we like what they're doing. In that same way, we try and feed into that relationship of an author and a translator when it's there.
It's really good to hear, and I think a lot of people really that'll resonate with them.
One of the goals that we probably didn't clarify at the start with when we started Charco was to really bring the translator to the fore and the important role that they play. It's so important for English readers to be able to explore other languages, or any reader to be able to explore literature from other languages. That these guys provide such a pivotal role to enable that to happen. So that's why, for example, we always have our translators named on the front covers by the authors, which not all publishers do. We also do events with our translators. Like we'll do launch events, partly because our authors are often thousands of miles away, but also people are finding it more interesting. They like to find out a little bit from somebody who's actually got inside the mind of the author from a different perspective and done the translation. So tomorrow night we actually have an event on Friday, on Brenda Lozano's Loop with the translators and the translator and editor who worked on that. So we're trying to really highlight that role and that function a lot more and the importance of it.
Yeah, that's spectacular. Are you planning on touring any of the authors through the States at all?
We will, as whenever we get the opportunity to. We absolutely will. We have to allow for a few planets to align to make that happen for budgetary considerations, etc.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we have, for example, Ariana Harwicz was just in New York a couple of weeks ago. I think that Margarita Garcia-Rabasho might be there early next year.
Oh, great.
There's some book festivals that are talking to us about some of our authors appearing. So it's around making it happen when we can, and also, there's not a massive bucket of money that we can just go and go touring across the US with one or two authors.
Yeah, I know. I know how that goes, and especially because you never know how those tours are going to turn out.
No.
They're a crapshoot in all respects. But it's fun, and I think that there are a number of booksellers here that already know about you and are going to be very supportive as the books are coming out, and that you'd have a good landing spot, I suppose, for the authors and for any events that you guys end up doing here. There's some momentum going especially with the booksellers who are key for translation here in the States.
They are, and there's been some really great feedback and interest in booksellers and the sales reps already. And I think it's helpful to have a couple of books out there before we start to try and schedule events. We tried to do some things here with our very first books, but nobody knew who we were, nobody knew how the authors were. Yeah. We managed to talk some of the odd bookshop into doing an event, and not that many people turned up, so they didn't really want to. Now they're very cagey from dealing with us. So I think it's important to get a bit of a good reputation out there first, make some contacts, find out where the hotspots are in terms of interest, and then plan some visits around that. But we would love to do some trips over there. I've spent a bit of time in the US, around the Bay Area in particular, over the years, and so we'd love to get back over and spend some time.
That's a great place. I can give you some names of people too if you don't. Yeah, I'm sure Caroline already knows all of them, so you don't need anything. But yeah, there's a lot of people that I think would be very keen to talk to you. So
yeah, fantastic.
Is there anything you guys want to add that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about, or tell me where can people find you online so they can all follow you?
Right. Okay. Well, that's it. Oh, time for a plug. Nice.
You got a plug. Okay, so yeah, that's the segue. It's an attempt.
Our website is charcopress.com. That's pretty easy. And our Twitter handle is Charco Press, and same on Facebook and same on Instagram. So we're active on all those areas. And our books are available in all good bookstores.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that sound pluggy enough?
Yeah, sounds like a good plug to me. Anything else you want to add, though?
No, just to thank you for doing this and for your brilliant article and the support as well that you're giving us. It means a lot to have you on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no problem. I love it. I've always been a big fan of Latin American literature, and I've been reading it my whole life. And having these new voices and these new opportunities has been really spectacular to me, because they are all authors I hadn't heard of before, which is great.
Amazing.
It's great.
That's really good to hear. I just say as well, anyone listening to this that wants to reach out to us or what have you, that feel free. We always like to hear from people, and if anyone's got any questions. We're not always super responsive, but we always do respond.
Hey, I feel you. I have 1,100 unopened messages in my mailbox right now. So, good fun. But anyway, so I will see you in Guadalajara in a week and a half. So
yes,
very cool.
Brilliant.
And thank you guys again for doing this. It's really fun to talk to you, and I'm glad that the books are available here now and everything's moving along.
Thank
It's been a pleasure, Chad. Thank you.
Last night I dreamed a mama came to my birthday party and they made a giant banner of my face. I wish they hadn't used the driver's license photo, but it's alright, and I could sense you somewhere in the crowd. And I knew that the rock would be proud because you could be in love with anyone.